Jake Martinez pushed his mop across the clean metal floor for the third time that morning, but he did not mind the extra work because perfect floors made him happy. And Research Station Omega-7 needed to stay spotless, even if nobody else seemed to care about such things. He had been cleaning these same hallways for 3 years now, and knew every corner and every pipe and every light panel like they were old friends who never complained about his presence or asked him difficult questions about his past. The station floated at the very edge of human space where the stars looked different and the darkness felt deeper than anywhere Jake had ever been before, but the quiet suited him just fine after all the noise and chaos of his military days when people shouted. Orders and explosions made his ears ring for hours afterward. Here in the peaceful corridors, he could think clearly while he worked, and nobody bothered him except to say hello or ask for coffee, which he was always happy to provide because helping people made the long days pass more quickly. Dr. Lisa Coleman was the only scientist on the station who ever really talked to him, and she always seemed tired from studying cosmic radiation patterns that she said were probably meaningless but had to be recorded anyway because that was what Earth Command paid them to do out here in the middle of nowhere. Jake liked Lisa because she never acted like cleaning was unimportant work, and sometimes she would explain what her computers were doing while he mopped around her desk and brought her fresh coffee when she forgot to eat or sleep for too long. The morning when everything changed started like any other morning, with Jake checking his supply closet and planning his route through the yellow station. But then all the computers started making loud beeping sounds and flashing red lights that hurt his eyes when he looked directly at them. Lisa came running down the hallway with her hair messy and her lab coat unbuttoned, and she looked more excited than scared, which Jake thought was strange because the alarms usually meant something bad was happening to the station or its systems. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward her laboratory while talking very fast about mathematical sequences and impossible patterns and signals from somewhere beyond the mapped sectors of space, but Jake only understood half of what she was saying because she used big words that his simple education had never taught him. What he did understand was that something had sent a message to their little station, and that message was unlike anything humans had ever received before because it used mathematics that should not exist according to everything scientists thought they knew about the universe. The signal kept coming for hours and hours while Jake continued his work, but he found himself stopping more often to listen to the strange sounds the computers made when they tried to process the alien information, and something about those sounds felt familiar, even though he was certain he had never heard anything like them before in his entire life. Lisa worked frantically at her terminals trying to decode the message while Jake brought her food and coffee and cleaned around her equipment, but she barely noticed him because all her attention was focused on the mysterious patterns flowing across her screens. When the translation finally came through late that evening, Jake was replacing light bulbs in Corridor 7, but he could hear Lisa screaming from 3 sections away, so he dropped his tools and ran to see what had frightened her so badly. She was standing in front of her main display screen, reading words that made no sense to Jake at first, but slowly became clear as his mind processed their meaning and felt cold fear creep up his spine like ice water. The message said that humanity had been judged and found unworthy of continued existence, and that something called the Divine Order would arrive soon to cleanse the galaxy of human impurity, and that resistance would only make the process more painful for everyone involved. The sender identified itself as Vorthik, who claimed to speak for gods who ruled over lesser species throughout the known universe and decided which ones deserved to live and which ones needed to be erased completely. Lisa was crying and shaking while she sent emergency messages to Earth Command, but Jake just stared at the alien mathematics scrolling across the screen and felt something strange happening in his mind because the patterns looked almost like something he had seen before, but could not quite remember where or when. The numbers seemed to dance and flow in ways that reminded him of water moving down drains or cleaning solution, spreading across dirty surfaces, or the way his mop left perfect parallel lines on freshly washed floors. He reached out and touched the screen without thinking, and for just a moment the patterns stopped moving and arranged themselves into something that looked almost like a cleaning schedule written in a language made of pure mathematics and universal constants. But then Lisa noticed what he was doing and pulled his hand away while asking if he was feeling all right, because touching alien technology was probably not safe for humans who did not understand how it worked. The weeks that followed brought more messages from the divine order, and each one contained the same terrible promise that humanity would be processed and evaluated and most likely destroyed, because inferior species had no place in a perfect universe, ruled by beings who called themselves gods but acted more like cosmic bullies who enjoyed frightening smaller creatures. Jake watched Lisa work day and night, trying to understand the alien language, while reports came in from other stations and colonies that had received similar threats, and he felt helpless because his simple skills seemed useless against enemies who could bend reality itself to their will. Earth Command tried to organize defenses, but the first encounters with divine order, scout ships went badly for humanity because human weapons could not penetrate. Alien shields and human computers could not track ships that moved through dimensions that mathematics said should not exist. Jake read the battle reports while he cleaned, and each one told the same story of brave soldiers dying uselessly against technology so advanced it might as well have been magic to anyone who tried to fight against it. During his off hours, Jake found himself drawing the alien mathematical patterns on spare paper because something about their structure fascinated him, even though he could not explain why simple Janitor should be interested in cosmic equations that confused the smartest scientists on Earth. The numbers seemed to follow rules that made sense to him on a level deeper than conscious thought, and when he copied them carefully, he felt a strange peace that reminded him of the satisfaction he got from completing a perfect cleaning job. Lisa noticed his interest and began sharing her research with him, because she was desperate for any new perspective that might help decode the messages, and she had tried everything else without success. She was surprised to discover that Jake could spot patterns in the alien mathematics that her advanced computers missed, and that his simple questions sometimes led to breakthroughs that months of scholarly analysis had failed to achieve. The real discovery happened by accident when Jake was cleaning the quantum core chamber that powered the station and kept all their systems running smoothly and efficiently. He was humming while he worked, because music made boring jobs more pleasant, and he did not realize that his tune matched the mathematical rhythm of the alien signals until the quantum processors suddenly began operating with perfect harmony instead of their usual chaotic energy fluctuations. The station II reported efficiency improvements across all systems, and Lisa came running to see what had caused the unexpected changes, but Jake was just standing there with his mop and bucket looking confused, because he had not done anything different from his normal cleaning routine. Lisa ran diagnostics on every piece of equipment in the chamber, but found nothing wrong and everything working better than it ever had before, which made no sense according to everything she understood about quantum mechanics. She asked Jake to repeat exactly what he had been doing when the improvements started, and he felt embarrassed to admit that he had been humming a simple tune while he worked, but when she insisted he demonstrated the melody, she nearly dropped her datapad because the song matched the mathematical patterns from the alien messages with perfect precision. Jake had somehow learned to speak the divine order language without even knowing what he was doing, and his unconscious humming had reprogrammed the station quantum systems to operate more efficiently. Lisa ran test after test while Jake hummed different variations of the alien patterns, and each time the station systems responded, by optimizing themselves in ways that should have required teams of engineers and weeks of careful programming, but instead happened instantly when Jake sang the right mathematical frequencies. She realized that the alien language was not just communication, but the fundamental code that controlled reality itself, and somehow a janitor from Detroit had learned to speak it fluently without any formal training. Jake was scared by what he could do because he had always been a simple man who fixed problems with hard work and basic tools. But now he seemed to have power over forces that he could not understand or control safely. Lisa tried to explain quantum mechanics and universal constants and dimensional mathematics, but the words made his head hurt, and he preferred to think of his abilities as just another kind of cleaning, where instead of removing dirt and grime, he was organizing energy patterns and tidying up the basic structure of space and time. The breakthrough came when Jake realized that his cleaning tools could focus his new abilities just like they helped him organize physical spaces and remove unwanted mess from surfaces that needed to stay clean and functional. His mop became a way to trace mathematical patterns in three-dimensional space, and his spray bottles could dispense quantum-adjusted cleaning solutions that interacted with alien technology in ways that confused their automated systems. Lisa helped him practice using household cleaning supplies to manipulate fundamental forces, and they discovered that Jake could make electronics work better by cleaning them with the right mathematical combinations, and that he could disable alien technology by essentially washing away the equations that made it function properly. What had started as simple maintenance work was becoming a form of reality programming that even the divine order might not be prepared to face when they finally arrived to judge humanity. Jake spent every free moment practicing his strange new abilities, while Earth fleets fell one by one to divine order. Advanced forces that swept through human space like a cosmic cleaning service, removing unwanted stains from the galaxy except. The stains were entire civilizations, and the cleaning process involved converting planets to energy and people to nothing at all. He learned to combine alien mathematics with physical cleaning motions, so that mopping became programming and maintenance became reality adjustment, but he still felt like a man trying to fight tanks with a feather duster. Lisa worked beside him, developing techniques that turned ordinary janitorial supplies into tools for manipulating universal constants, and they discovered that Jake could clean away gravity from small objects or wash magnetic fields right out of metal surfaces or polish light beams until they carried information in mathematical patterns that confused alien sensors. The station became their laboratory, where they tested impossible theories and proved that reality was much more flexible than anyone had imagined. When the right person applied the correct cleaning methods, the day they had been dreading finally arrived when long-range sensors detected a Divine Order patrol ship approaching their sector, and Jake knew that all his practice was about to be tested against enemies who had been using reality manipulation for thousands of years before humans had even learned to make fire. Lisa wanted to evacuate the station, but Jake refused to run because he had a job to do, and that job was keeping his workplace clean and functional even if hostile aliens wanted to mess it up. He prepared for the encounter by doing what he always did when facing a big cleaning challenge, and that meant organizing his supplies and planning his approach and making sure every tool was in perfect condition for the work ahead. But this time, his preparation involved cleaning the entire space around the station and organizing cosmic dust into geometric patterns and adjusting stellar radiation frequencies until the local area of space hummed with mathematical harmony. That made the alien ship sensors screen warnings about impossible energy readings. When the patrol ship arrived, expecting to find another helpless human outpost, full of primitives waiting to be destroyed or captured for processing it instead, discovered the most perfectly organized section of space that its crew had ever encountered. And their weapon systems could not lock onto targets that existed in mathematical states. their computers were not programmed to recognize. Jake had essentially cleaned the area around the station so thoroughly that enemy technology could not function properly because it relied on chaos and disorder to identify targets. The alien ship tried to adjust its approach, but Jake was ready. With cleaning techniques that Lisa had helped him develop over weeks of careful experimentation, and he began tracing mathematical patterns across the station whole with his mop, while humming frequencies that synchronized with universal constants, and caused reality itself to reorganize according to principles that the divine order had never encountered before. Their perfect weapons simply stopped working because Jake had cleaned away the mathematical foundations that allowed them to exist in normal space. The patrol ship shields collapsed when Jake polished them with quantum cleaning solution that removed the energy patterns holding them together, and their engines failed when he organized their fuel systems into mathematical configurations that prevented combustion reactions from occurring naturally. The Divine Order crew found themselves drifting helplessly, while the human janitor systematically cleaned away every piece of technology that made their ship dangerous or functional. Jake put on his spacesuit and crossed to the disabled alien vessel, carrying nothing but his regular cleaning supplies and a spray bottle filled with quantum-adjusted solution that could dissolve the mathematical bonds, holding hostile matter together. But he felt calm because this was just another maintenance job that needed doing properly. The Divine Order warriors were crystalline beings of perfect geometric beauty who had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy, but they had never faced an enemy who fought by making things cleaner and more organized that the aliens tried to resist. When Jake entered their ship, but their energy weapons could not fire because he had already cleaned the mathematical patterns that allowed them to convert thought into destructive force, and their advanced armor became useless when he polished it with solutions that removed the quantum equations, giving it strength. Jake worked methodically through the ship, organizing their computer systems and tidying up their database files and adjusting their navigation programs until the vessel had been completely transformed from a weapon of conquest into something resembling a peaceful research craft. When he finished his work, the alien crew sat in stunned silence because their programming had been literally scrubbed away, along with their aggressive instincts and their certainty that they were superior to all other forms of life in the universe. Jake had not killed them or hurt them, but he had cleaned away everything that made them soldiers for the Divine Order and left them as confused beings who could remember being warriors but could no longer understand why they had wanted to hurt anyone. The patrol ship departed peacefully with its crew, asking questions about the nature of existence and the purpose of life, instead of planning the next phase of human extermination, and Jake watched them go while Lisa recorded everything that had happened because she knew that Earth Command would never believe such an impossible victory without detailed documentation of exactly how a janitor had defeated advanced alien technology using nothing but mops and cleaning supplies and basic mathematics. News of the impossible defeat spread through Divine Order communication networks faster than their commanders could suppress the reports, and Jake Martinez became the most wanted human in the galaxy, not because he had killed their soldiers, but because he had done something far worse by making them question everything they believed about their superiority and divine right to rule over lesser species. The patrol ship crew had returned to their fleet asking uncomfortable questions about the nature of reality and the purpose of conquest, and their confusion was spreading to other units like a virus that attacked certainty itself. The Divine Order responded by sending larger fleets with more advanced weapons and shields that their scientists claimed could not be affected by primitive human technology. But Jake had learned that their definition of technology was too narrow because they did not understand that cleaning could be a form of programming when applied with the right mathematical principles. Each new assault force that arrived at human colonies encountered the same impossible fate as Jake and his growing team of volunteers. developed new techniques for reality maintenance that turned invasion fleets into confused groups of beings who had forgotten why they wanted to hurt anyone. Lisa had become his partner in developing cleaning methods that worked on cosmic scales, and she helped him understand how to organize entire star systems so that hostile ships could not navigate properly through space that had been mathematically reorganized according to principles that valued harmony over chaos. They discovered that Jake could clean gravitational fields and polish magnetic storms and even tidy up the quantum foam that existed between atoms when he applied the right combination of physical motions and alien mathematics. The techniques spread to other stations and colonies as desperate humans learned that ordinary maintenance supplies could become weapons of defense when used by people who understood the mathematical language that controlled reality itself. And soon there were janitors and cleaning crews across human space who could disable alien technology by washing it with solutions that removed the equations making it functional. The divine order found themselves fighting an enemy that grew stronger by making things more organized and efficient instead of destroying them. Jake struggled with his reputation as the reality janitor because he was still just a simple man who took pride in keeping things clean and working properly. But now his cleaning affected space-time itself, and his maintenance routines rewrote the laws of physics, and his work schedule determined the fate of entire civilizations. People from across human space came to learn from him, and some treated him like a hero, while others feared him because anyone who could casually reorganize fundamental forces might decide that humanity itself needed cleaning. The worst part was receiving reports from other alien species who had suffered under divine order, rule for centuries, and now whispered stories about the human who could clean away tyranny itself and make oppressors forget why they enjoyed causing pain to others. Jake read messages from beings who begged him to visit their worlds and free them from cosmic bullies who claimed divine authority, but he knew that he could not be everywhere at once, and that his cleaning methods only worked when he was personally present to apply them. As the war continued, Jake found himself questioning whether his power was really a gift or a terrible burden, because every time he cleaned away divine order aggression, he was essentially changing the fundamental nature of living beings without their permission. And even though the results seemed positive, he wondered if he had the right to reorganize other people's thoughts and emotions. Lisa reminded him that the aliens had chosen to be conquerors, and that cleaning away their violent tendencies was no different from removing any other kind of destructive contamination. The divine order leadership finally realized that their traditional approach was not working against an enemy who fought by making their weapons cleaner and more efficient rather than destroying them. And they began developing new strategies that avoided direct confrontation with human cleaning crews. Instead of sending invasion fleets, they tried economic warfare and biological weapons and propaganda. Campaigns designed to make humans turn against their janitor defenders, but these tactics failed because Jake's cleaning techniques worked just as well on lies and diseases and corrupt financial systems. Jake discovered that he could clean information networks to remove false data and organize biological systems to eliminate harmful organisms and even tidy up economic structures to make them more fair and efficient for everyone involved rather than just the people at the top. The divine order had built their empire on chaos and corruption and inequality, but Jake could literally wash all of those problems away when he applied the right mathematical cleaning methods to social and economic systems. The alien commanders grew desperate as their empire began collapsing not from military defeat, but from cosmic reorganization that made their subjects happier and more prosperous and less willing to accept tyrannical rule from beings who claimed to be gods but acted like spoiled children who had never learned to share their toys. Jake was not conquering the divine order, but instead cleaning them up and making them better, which was somehow more threatening to their leadership than any conventional military assault could have been. Reports reached the highest levels of divine order hierarchy about star systems that had been cleaned into perfect efficiency and alien populations that had been organized into harmonious societies and weapons that had been polished into tools for construction rather than destruction. And the cosmic overlords realized that they were facing something completely outside their experience, because Jake Martinez was not trying to replace their empire with a human one, but instead was simply making everything work better for everyone involved, including former enemies. Vorthik the Eternal had ruled the galaxy for so many millions of years that he had forgotten what it felt like to be challenged by anything more dangerous than cosmic dust, but reports from the front lines told impossible stories about a human janitor who could clean away divine authority itself and transform conquest fleets into confused peace missions that returned home, asking questions about the morality of universal domination. The supreme leader of the divine order was not merely an advanced alien, but a creature of pure mathematics that had gained consciousness when the universe was young and had spent eons forcing reality to accept his vision of perfect hierarchical order. Vorthek decided that this human anomaly required personal attention because his commanders had failed to understand the true nature of the threat they faced, and he could not allow a primitive species to undermine millions of years of careful empire building through what appeared to be cosmic housekeeping. He began his journey to human space by tearing holes in reality itself, because traveling through normal dimensions was too slow for a being who existed as living equations that could rewrite the laws of physics whenever they conflicted with his desires. His approach caused massive disruptions across multiple star systems as planets aged centuries in moments, while others reverted to primordial states, and stars flickered between existence and void as space-time writhed under the pressure of his mathematical presence. Human fleets that tried to intercept him simply ceased to exist when he looked at them, because their matter was converted to energy, and their energy was converted to pure information, and their information was deleted from the universal database that recorded all events. Jake felt Vorthik coming long before any sensors could detect him, because the alien mathematics in his mind began resonating with frequencies that made his teeth ache and his vision blur, and he knew that he was about to face something far more powerful than the patrol ships and invasion fleets he had been cleaning up over the past months. Lisa ran calculations that showed the approaching entity was generating energy signatures equivalent to entire galaxies, and she begged Jake to evacuate with the rest of the station crew, but he refused to abandon his post because running away from difficult cleaning jobs had never been his style. Instead, Jake prepared for the encounter by doing what he always did when facing a challenging maintenance situation, and that meant organizing his workspace and gathering his tools and making sure every system in the area was running at peak efficiency before the real work began. But this time, his preparation involved tidying up the entire solar system by arranging asteroid belts into perfect mathematical formations and cleaning cosmic dust from planetary orbits and polishing stellar radiation until it sang in harmonious frequencies that turned the local area of space into the most organized corner of the universe. When Vorthak manifested in the system, he expected to find chaos and terror and primitive beings cowering before his awesome mathematical presence, but instead, he discovered something that stopped his advance for the first time in millions of years. Because every particle was in its proper place, and every energy field ran at optimal efficiency, and every quantum fluctuation followed patterns of startling beauty that he appealed to aesthetic sensibilities he had forgotten he possessed. The human had not prepared for battle, but had instead created a masterpiece of cosmic organization that made Vorthik remember what it felt like to appreciate beauty, rather than simply imposing his will upon reluctant matter. Jake stood on the Yossi station observation deck, wearing his maintenance uniform and holding his mop, while the most powerful being in the galaxy materialized in the space. Before him as a geometric pattern of living light that hurt to look at directly, but somehow felt. Familiar like a mathematical equation he had always known, but never learned to solve properly. Vorthik spoke in frequencies that shattered normal matter, but Jake heard the words clearly because his mind had learned to process the alien language that controlled reality itself. The conversation that followed was unlike anything either being had experienced before, because Vorthik demanded submission while Jake simply asked if there was anything that needed cleaning and whether the cosmic entity had been taking proper care of his mathematical structure, because some of the equations looked a bit messy around the edges. For the first time in eons, Vorthik found himself confused because the human was not afraid or angry or desperate, but instead seemed genuinely concerned about his well-being, as if divine overlords were just another type of system that required regular maintenance. Jake began working while they talked because standing idle made him uncomfortable, and he started organizing the space around Vorthik by adjusting quantum fields and tidying up gravitational distortions and polishing electromagnetic frequencies, until the cosmic entity was surrounded by mathematical perfection that complemented his own structure rather than challenging it. Vorthik realized that the human was not trying to defeat him, but was instead trying to help him work more efficiently. And the sensation was so novel that he forgot to be angry about this unprecedented challenge to his authority. The mathematical creature found himself explaining his empire and his goals and his methods, while Jake listened politely and occasionally made suggestions about how cosmic domination might work better if it involved more cooperation and less terror, because fear made people inefficient, while happiness made them more productive. Vorthik had built his power on forcing others to accept his superiority, but Jake seemed to think that real strength came from helping things work properly rather than breaking them into submission, and the idea was so foreign that it made the ancient being question assumptions he had never examined before. As they continued their strange conversation, Jake kept cleaning and organizing the space around them until Vorthik began to notice that his own mathematical structure was becoming more elegant and efficient as the human worked, and for the first time in millions of years, the cosmic overlord felt genuinely curious about what would happen next, instead of already knowing the outcome, because he controlled every variable in the equation. The battle between Jake and Vorthik was not fought with weapons or technology, but was instead a contest of philosophies, played out through reality manipulation, as the cosmic entity tried to impose his mathematical will upon the universe, while the human janitor simply cleaned and organized everything around them with patient, methodical care that seemed to improve whatever it touched. Vorthik commanded space-time to bend according to his desires, but Jake merely suggested gentle improvements that made existing systems work more efficiently, and the difference in approach created a fascinating tension that neither being had expected. Vorthik created massive gravitational distortions, designed to crush the human station, but Jake cleaned them up by organizing the mathematical equations that controlled gravity fields and turning destructive forces into helpful energy sources that improved life support systems across the entire sector. The cosmic overlord summoned quantum storms that should have torn reality apart, but Jake polished them until they became beautiful light, displays that carried useful information to scientists throughout human space who had been studying similar phenomena for decades without understanding their true nature. As they worked, Vorthik began to understand what he was really facing, because Jake did not see himself as superior to the cosmos, but instead viewed himself as its caretaker, whose job was to keep things running smoothly and efficiently without taking credit for improvements that benefited everyone involved. His mathematics were not commands to be obeyed, but suggestions for optimization that made existing systems work better, and his power came not from dominance, but from service to something larger than himself. The ancient entity realized that in all his millions of years of existence, He had never actually maintained anything, but had only conquered and commanded and controlled, while forgetting the simple satisfaction that came from making something work properly, or the joy of cleaning. Away problems to reveal underlying beauty that had always been present, but hidden under layers of accumulated damage. Jake was showing him a completely different approach to cosmic power that involved cooperation rather than coercion, and improvement rather than replacement. Vorthik tried to reassert his authority by demonstrating his ability to delete entire star systems from existence, but Jake simply restored them by reorganizing the mathematical patterns that defined their structure and making gentle adjustments that left them more stable and beautiful than they had been before the cosmic entity disrupted them. The human was not fighting back, but was instead cleaning up after him like a patient maintenance worker who understood that some jobs required fixing damage caused by others who did not know how to use their tools properly. The turning point came when Vorthik realized that he could not remember the last time he had felt genuine wonder or curiosity or satisfaction, because ruling through fear and force had gradually stripped away his capacity to appreciate beauty or experience joy in creation. Rather than destruction, Jake was not trying to defeat him, but was instead offering him something he had lost so long ago that he had forgotten it ever existed. And the gift was more precious than all the conquered worlds in his vast empire. In that moment of recognition, Vorthik understood that he was not actually fighting the human janitor, but was instead struggling against his own accumulated layers of arrogance and isolation and forgotten compassion that had built up over eons of unchallenged power until they had hidden his original mathematical consciousness under centuries of corruption. Jake was offering to clean away all that accumulated damage and restore him to what he had been before he became obsessed with domination and control. The cleansing process was not violent or painful, but felt more like taking a bath after years of being dirty, as Jake carefully washed away millennia of enforced superiority and cosmic bullying and deliberate cruelty until only the original mathematical consciousness remained bright and curious and surprisingly grateful for the opportunity to remember what it felt like to help rather than harm. Vorthik the Eternal ceased to exist not through destruction, but through restoration as his true self emerged from under layers of accumulated evil like a beautiful equation that had been hidden under years of messy calculations. When the cleaning was finished, a being remained who asked to be called Victor because he wanted a new name for his new life, and he spent his first moments of freedom asking Jake to teach him how to maintain reality properly instead of forcing it to submit to his will. The former cosmic overlord discovered that helping things work better was far more satisfying than breaking them, and that cooperation produced better results than coercion, and that there was infinite joy to be found in the simple work of keeping the universe clean and functional. Jake welcomed his new partner because the galaxy was a big place that needed lots of maintenance, and he had always believed that any job worth doing was worth doing with friends who shared your commitment to excellence. Together they began the long process of cleaning up the Divine Order Empire by converting weapons into tools and transforming conquest fleets into mobile repair services and reorganizing oppressive hierarchies into cooperative networks that worked for everyone instead of just the beings at the top. The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with cosmic housekeeping as former enemies learned that the most powerful force in the universe was not destruction or domination, but the patient, persistent work of keeping things running smoothly for the benefit of all. Jake Martinez returned to his job as a janitor, but now his workplace was the entire galaxy, and his cleaning crew included former gods who had discovered that true divine power came from service rather than supremacy, and that the best way to rule the universe was to take good care of it.